The day my world fell apart, I tried to hold it together the only way I knew how, by working relentlessly. My loving husband, Kevin, had been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and the weight of that reality threatened to crush me. So, I buried myself in my work, hoping it would dull the ache in my heart. Then, out of nowhere, a man appeared before me, his presence sharp and intrusive. He claimed to be a lawyer and spoke with an air of smug confidence. "Your husband has filed a lawsuit," he announced, holding out a folder. "He's seeking $5 million in damages." I stared at him, uncomprehending. "Damages? Are you having an affair while your husband is in the hospital?" His words dripped with accusation as he flipped open the folder, revealing a stack of photographs. "We have evidence." Shock paralyzed me. The very suggestion was absurd, but his certainty was unwavering. "I have no idea what you're talking about," I managed to say. He scoffed. "We've already gathered proof that you're a woman too busy with another man to care for your ailing husband." Something inside me snapped. This stranger, this man who knew nothing about me, was challenging the very core of my existence. I clenched my fists, took a steadying breath, and made a decision. "Come with me," I said firmly. I led him toward my home, and as we walked, I discreetly signaled to a neighbor, a silent plea for a witness should I need one. "My name is Melissa. I'm 27 years old, and I run multiple web media platforms for a living." Sitting in my living room later that evening, I found myself staring at my computer screen, the words on it blurring together. My mind was tangled in turmoil. What should I do? How could I possibly prove my innocence against accusations so wildly untrue? A familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. "Melissa, let's take a break." I turned to see my husband, Kevin, stepping out of the kitchen with a steaming cup of coffee in his hands. He set it down gently beside me, his warm eyes full of quiet concern. "Thank you," I murmured, touched by the simple yet profound act of kindness. Kevin wasn't just my husband. He was my partner in every sense of the word. We built our careers together, working side by side as web writers. Writing had always been my passion, and during college, I pursued it wholeheartedly. But inexperience quickly became a roadblock, and I found myself struggling. It was then that a friend introduced me to Kevin, a seasoned web writer. He became my mentor, guiding me through the complexities of the industry. Over time, our professional partnership blossomed into something deeper. We became inseparable, our lives intertwining effortlessly. After graduation, we launched our own web platforms and built a business together. The line between work and home blurred, but neither of us minded. People often asked, "Don't you ever get tired of being together all the time?" But I never did. Kevin's gentle nature made our days smooth and comforting. I imagined our life continuing like this forever. Then one day, everything changed. At a friend's urging, we decided to get routine cancer screenings. It was something we took lightly at first, joking about our good health. But when Kevin's results came back, the world tilted off its axis. The doctor said he needed further testing. Even then, Kevin reassured me with a smile. "I'm fine," he said. "Nothing's going to be wrong." But something was wrong. The test results came back, and the truth was devastating. Kevin had cancer. And not just cancer. It was advanced. I collapsed in the doctor's office, the air ripped from my lungs. This couldn't be real. We had regular checkups. There had been no warnings. Sure, he caught colds now and then, but Kevin always brushed them off. If only I had insisted on more checkups. If only I had seen the signs. Regret clawed at me, but it was quickly swallowed by an even greater fear, the thought of losing him. Kevin was admitted to the hospital immediately. I visited him every day, squeezing in time between work and responsibilities. No matter how sick he felt, he always welcomed me with a calm smile and asked about our projects, his passion undiminished. His resilience fueled my own. If he could keep going, so could I. I wiped away my tears and kept working, throwing myself into the job we had built together. But no matter how hard I tried to focus, grief loomed over me, an ever-present shadow. To distract myself further, I took on a part-time job at a nearby supermarket in addition to my web work. Days blurred into nights, exhaustion becoming my constant companion. One evening, after finishing my shift, I headed home, mentally listing the tasks awaiting me. Cleaning, working, preparing for my next hospital visit. Then, without warning, the world spun. My vision wavered, and I broke into a cold sweat. My legs gave out beneath me, and I found myself sitting on the pavement, dazed and frightened. "Are you all right?" The voice was soft, concerned. A gentle hand rested on my shoulder. I looked up to see a middle-aged woman gazing at me with worry. I'm fine, I tried to say, though the words felt unconvincing. She wasn't convinced either. Come with me, she said, and before I could protest, she led me away. I found myself in a warm, familiar-looking suburban home. Where is this? I asked weakly. My home, she said kindly. Rest here for a while. Despite never having met her before, her presence felt oddly comforting. She settled me onto a sofa, placed a cool cloth on my forehead, and covered me with a blanket. After a while, the dizziness passed, and I sat up. Thank you, I said softly. I'm sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. She smiled, relieved. I'm Laura. I hesitated. I have a husband, too. The words caught in my throat as an image of Kevin flashed in my mind. Laura noticed my struggle. It's okay, she said gently. You don't have to talk if it's too hard. But the dam inside me broke, and I found myself telling her everything. About Kevin's illness, about my attempts to drown my sorrow in work, about the unbearable weight pressing down on me. Laura listened. Then, without a word, she pulled me into an embrace. It's hard, isn't it? She murmured, her voice trembling with shared pain. I wept. From that day forward, Laura became a part of my life. Through her, I reconnected with the neighbors I had unknowingly pushed away. They, too, had noticed my absence, unsure of how to reach out. And then, one day, the hospital granted Kevin permission for a temporary return home. A final homecoming. I vowed to make every moment count, to fill our remaining time with love and laughter. Kevin, I asked, my voice gentle, is there anything special you'd like to do? He didn't hesitate. I'd like to see Laura, he said. As the days passed, I found myself seeking solace in the familiar rhythm of work. It was the only way I knew to dull the relentless ache in my heart, the sorrow of knowing my loving husband, Kevin, was slipping away from me. Every keystroke, every article I published became a distraction, a desperate attempt to outrun the grief that loomed over me like a storm cloud. Then, one afternoon, a man approached me outside my workplace, his expression unreadable behind polished glasses. His voice was calm, but there was something unsettling about his tone. Melissa, correct? He asked. I'm a lawyer. Your husband has submitted a request for $5 million in damages. The words barely registered. I blinked, confusion clouding my thoughts. My husband, I repeated, incredulous. Kevin he's sick. He would never. With a smug smirk, the man pulled out his phone, tapping the screen before turning it toward me. There, displayed in glaring pixels, was a photograph, a man and a woman walking arm in arm. You've been having an affair, haven't you? He accused, as if presenting undeniable proof. I stared at the image, my heart pounding in my chest. The woman in the picture did bear a resemblance to me, but I knew without a doubt it wasn't me. That's not me, I said firmly. And I don't know that man. There must be some mistake. The so-called lawyer scoffed, shaking his head. We've already gathered evidence proving that you neglected your sick husband while you entertained another man. Lies about his death won't work. We know everything. A cold chill ran down my spine. How dare he? How could a stranger look me in the eye and accuse me of betraying the man I loved with my whole being? I took a deep breath, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. There was only one way to end this absurdity. Come with me, I said, turning on my heel. I'll show you the truth. As we walked, I spotted Laura, my kind-hearted neighbor, leaving a grocery store nearby. Her sharp eyes flickered toward me, sensing something was wrong. I subtly raised my palm, curling my thumb inward, a silent signal she had once taught me. Her gaze lingered for a moment before she nodded, then disappeared down the street. I led the so-called lawyer into my home without a word, his self-assured smirk never wavering. Let's discuss the paperwork inside, he said, as if he had already won. Ignoring him, I guided him toward a quiet room at the end of the hall. As we stepped inside, the air shifted. It was a small room, but every corner held a piece of my past. A memorial altar adorned with Kevin's photographs, each capturing his warm, gentle smile. Flowers, fresh and fragrant, surrounded the framed images, and incense burned softly in the air. The man's smirk faded instantly. Wait, he's really dead, he muttered, his face draining of color. I exhaled slowly, steadying my voice. My husband passed away 2 years ago, I said, my eyes locking onto his. So tell me, how could he possibly have filed a lawsuit against me? His mouth opened and closed, his hands twitching as he clumsily pulled out his phone. I caught a glimpse of his screen, a photograph of Kevin, taken before his illness, full of life and strength. A sickening realization crept over me. "Why do you have that photo?" I demanded. The man hesitated, but under my piercing stare, he finally spoke. His words tumbled out in a nervous rush. He had purchased information about me and Kevin from a so-called informant, someone who had painted us as a wealthy couple, with a grieving widow who was easy prey. That same informant had concocted a lie, claiming I was unfaithful and supplying fabricated evidence. The lawyer, or rather the scammer, had fallen for it, hoping to manipulate me into paying a non-existent settlement. "I had no idea he was actually dead," the man muttered. His eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an escape. Disgust rose in my throat, but before I could respond, his expression shifted. His lips curled into something eerie, something wrong. "Well, if I'm caught," he whispered. A shiver ran through me. The room suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. He took a slow, deliberate step toward me. And then, police! The front door burst open. Heavy footsteps thundered through the house, and within seconds, several officers swarmed in. Relief crashed over me like a tidal wave, my legs finally giving out beneath me. I sank to the floor, gasping as the tension I had unknowingly held inside unraveled all at once. The officers restrained the man, his smugness dissolving into sheer panic. In the commotion, I turned my gaze toward the doorway, where Laura stood, her phone still in her hand. The silent signal. She had understood immediately. Later, I learned that the man had a history of fraud, his scams spanning multiple victims. He had targeted grieving families before, preying on their vulnerability. He would be facing a long prison sentence. A few days later, I visited Laura with a small gift in hand, a token of my gratitude. But instead of accepting it, she folded her arms and scolded me. "You shouldn't have let him into your house," she chided, her voice firm but warm. I smiled sheepishly, lowering my gaze. "I know, but I had to prove it." Laura sighed before reaching out and lightly tapping my forehead, the way she always did when I needed a reminder to be careful. "Kevin asked me to look after you," she murmured, her voice softer now. "So please, don't do anything reckless again." Her words sent an unexpected sting to my eyes, but this time, the tears that welled up weren't just from sadness. Time passed. Life carried on. Every morning, I stood before Kevin's memorial, hands pressed together in quiet remembrance. The pain of losing him would never completely fade, but the loneliness had been softened by the kindness of those around me. Laura, the neighbors, the people who had unknowingly lifted me from the depths of my grief. As I gazed at Kevin's picture, his gentle smile seemed to hold a silent conversation with me. "Even in a world without you, I am not alone." With a small, knowing smile, I whispered, "Rest easy, Kevin." And with renewed determination, I turned away, ready to embrace another day.